Marshland is a thriller/neo-noir film set in Spain in the year 1980, during the political transition period the country was going through, when they were negotiating the change between dictatorship and democracy. Two homicide detectives, who don't always appear to see eye to eye with each other, are sent from Madrid to a small and forgotten rural town in the marshy lowlands of southern Spain to investigate the brutal murder of two teenage sisters. Over the course of their investigation, they realize that many of the town's inhabitants they encounter probably know more than they are letting on, and that this is a community that might still have one foot rooted in the old fascist regime, absolutely willing to turn a blind eye every now and then to the murder of a couple of teenage girls. Despite the very interesting historical context, it wasn't necessarily the story that impressed me most about this film. Not that it's anything bad, but I didn't really feel like it was anything extraordinary as far as a cop thriller goes. It's kind of your typical mixture of good cop, bad cop being taken out of their comfort zone in order to conduct an investigation in a community where they are not particularly welcomed and they don't particularly have control. Preparing this review, there was one movie that came to my mind, and that was Sicario, about which I kind of felt the same way after first viewing it, meaning that I felt that the not-so-extraordinary plot kind of bogged down the movie just a tiny bit. Sicario was my most anticipated film of last year for sure, and I was almost disappointed by it, if that makes any sense. The reason why I say almost is that in both of these films, thanks to the absolutely superb cinematography and soundtrack, both of these films ended up ranking as some of my favorites of 2015. It just goes to show that style over substance isn't always necessarily a bad thing, especially when it comes to these kind of crime thriller type films that put a lot of emphasis on setting a mood, on creating atmosphere, creating suspense, and also having excellent action set pieces as well. Now don't get me wrong, both of these films have very strong, very memorable, very interesting and also very damaged lead characters. There is character study, there are major character arcs, these things of course are touched upon, but I kind of felt that they were a little bit cast aside in favor of suspense building. And by God, there is a lot of that here in Marshland. This film magnificently oozes with a very malicious and unsettling atmosphere. And the carefully composed and edited shots are so awesome that they absolutely have to be seen on the big screen in order to be appreciated. The most striking elements that make up this film visually are aerial shots of these marshes that were probably filmed with drones. These types of shots set the mood for the film perfectly, and they also show up several times after our detectives visit a new location for the first time, and it really sets the tone for the place, and it makes it clear exactly how insignificant, indistinguishable, and directionless people can seem when viewed as it were under a microscope. While, like I said, this film reminded me somewhat of Sicario, it has also been compared to Seven and the first season of the True Detective TV series. I would say the comparison is fair. The ominous and bleak atmosphere and the dysfunctionality between the two detectives leading the investigation in Marshland is very reminiscent of these films I just mentioned. While I don't think it adds necessarily anything new to this genre, it definitely works and it's definitely very interesting. The two cops are not only fighting a common enemy, they are also to a certain extent untrustworthy among themselves. Their personalities sometimes clash, with the younger, more inexperienced cop, the rookie basically, being the more careful, the pacifistic type, the one who doesn't really want to stir up more shit than is recommended, while the older and more experienced cop likes doing things more in the I'm going to kick your ass and hopefully leave you conscious enough for you to be able to answer my questions afterwards method of doing things. You know, the old school way. I appreciated that the film felt like something that respects its audience, and it feels like something that's made to be paid attention to. It kind of puts the viewer in the position of a detective as well, because the clues that are scattered throughout the film are so brief that if you leave, if you go to the bathroom for a minute or two and come back, it's quite possible that you will miss something vital. It's a very tight, very well executed, very well acted film, and I definitely recommend it. And I definitely recommend it in the cinema. That's the way you'll get the whole experience.